Hey.
Hey.
You got a portal to Al's room.
Oh, yeah. Portal?
That's what I'm calling it.
Is that it right there?
Yep. Sweet. Sweet.
Sweet and sweet.
Hi, Dal.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, they match. Oh, yeah. No.
I love Larry Rao.
It's 9 o'clock on Saturday.
This one was, oh, there's the video. Okay. This one was like loose on the floor.
Oh, what is it?
Chris Snyder.
Oh,
It's
he's
an
one of our other members.
illustrated lyric book and vinyl record.
Yeah.
So that's just part of
It's
the
a
set.
vinyl. It's part of the vinyl. Stack of vinyl. 9? That's more than I was thinking. That's not bad. That August 21 official is online. August 15 we're ready here. August 15 we're here. We'd be like the last half. It's not hours, but I think it'd be like 45 minutes. Then, first, I think we're gonna, at this point, unless they change it, we should do it. Not, Eric wants your doctor. Not gonna go, basically, as a doctor, I interpret this like, are you staying in a hotel or not? So, like, we're definitely not be there for hours. I want the money. I want to pay everybody. And I don't want to bail on it. Yeah, I don't want to get a good relationship. And then Ramsey's parties create a Friday night, a rain day, August. So we got games. Yes, I'm 42. That's good. Wednesdays, and then we'll figure out what we're doing. Possibly, though, it's think about it is that one of the parts of my vision of it is like all the ton of black people color and like a lot of places that people are very style. I mean, after that, you have to be careful.
Very good. Very cool for a lot of reasons.
You don't want to present one person
Right, so
It's also, I also, something that I've been saying is their community is hurting. The response is not necessarily a lot of people. Their community is I present something in a way that I'm trying really hard to be open.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
Good to see you. That's a nice photo.
Nice to see you as well.
We got Al on early. Make sure that's all cool.
Nice.
We're
Hello,
cool.
Al.
It was good to hear about tickets. We're in
Yeah.
I really believe we're in like a really weird part of a really weird time. And, you know, we'll see. I have this, I know so many people in the industry are kind of down on streaming. I don't agree. I think it's going to come on strong as hell in the fall and the winter when nobody can do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we definitely are going to have to keep this going. And, you know, I think this is a creative concept. It's not just the performance. And I think you guys have been really smart about how you do it.
Hey,
Hello, Al.
Hey,
This is Dan
Okay,
Conroe, marketing director of City Winery Chicago.
sorry, who?
He's Dan Conroe, and he's a marketing guy with the City Winery.
Hi, Dan.
Hello, Al. Great to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Ooh, Al, you look good.
Yeah, my makeup artist did a little job on me.
Hey, Adam.
Amazing.
Adam's going to come say hi, Al.
Who we got?
Al's
Al.
Hey, hey.
Hey, Al. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
You know, I'm all right. When after they saw you earlier this year, it was revealed that I got married. And also, I heard that after the UK tour, Lauren really put the heat on me. And I heard Jill was putting the heat on you. Is that true?
Yeah, you know, we were going to get married. We had a date set, and then of course the pandemic closed the city hall, and here we are. I mean,
I got it. I snuck in just before City Hall closed. I didn't know you guys even had a date set. That's great.
no, we had a date set, but it went out the window along with the cruise. You know.
Yeah, and a lot of other things.
Yeah, a lot of other things. Yeah.
Well, it's good to see you. Tell Jill I say hi too, and I'm asking for her.
She looked good. She looked
What?
good.
Yeah, she's bearing up. You know, I mean, she's in the wars a little bit at the moment, but she's going to the doctor, and the outlook looks hopeful. You know.
And did they catch up? They caught everything early and stuff, yeah?
Yeah, they caught everything early, so you know.
All right, we have Lisa waiting.
All right, good luck.
She's great.
Bye, Al. Good to see you.
Hi, Dan.
Unmute. Hi, Erica.
Hi. Al, the other person on the screen at the City Winery, I have known since I was a little girl. I've known Dan since I was a child.
Is that right?
We went to camp together.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, should we let Lisa in?
Let's let Lisa in.
Hi,
Hi,
Lisa.
Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
Great to see ya. This works. The system works.
Is it awesome?
It's awesome.
And you're outside, even better.
I am. Yeah.
We'll make introductions when we get a couple more. We're waiting on a couple more. But it's great to see you. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. So this is Josh.
That's me. This is
Hi,
Eric.
Josh. Hi. I'm sorry.
Erica.
Erica. Hi, Erica.
And of course, that is Al Stewart.
Of course, Al. Great to meet you, Al.
You too.
Lisa is a great friend of City Winery Chicago. We've worked with her a bunch. She's attended a bunch of shows, previewed them, reviewed them, and is just our favorite. So
Great.
Oh, thank
glad
you.
you're here, Lisa.
Yeah, this is fun. I don't think I've ever done it quite like this.
No.
This is a fun, weird.
No, this is new to I think all of us, but
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
the world we're living in, and it works. Thank goodness for technology.
Yes.
Right.
And I know we'll have a few more joining shortly. So
And-
Josh, if you keep an eye out for others.
I'll keep an eye out, and then we're also recording Dan and Al.
Oh, awesome.
So we'll be able
Great.
to pass on to anybody who wants it later. I'm letting someone else in.
Perfect.
I'll be on my best behavior.
Hi, welcome.
Oh,
Hey, how are
Hey,
you?
Lou, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you? Nice to see you, Dan.
Good. Nice to see you as well.
I have some stuff going on in the background, so I'm probably going to be off video most of the time, but it's nice to see you guys.
Nice to see you as well.
Lauren's
And if I
on
can
as
make
well. Lauren's
a quick
jumping on
intro.
right
So we've got Lauren and Lou from American Blues Scene.
Great.
Awesome publication that we work
now. Nice
with.
to see you guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
We still have them. We don't have Lou's audio or Lauren's audio, but that's all right. We're going to give it a couple more minutes. We got a couple other people waiting, and then we'll start. Virtually.
It's one of my best dance moves, actually.
Here's Phil.
This is a good way to warm up for a press conference.
Very professional.
Don't hold back.
Hey, Phil. Yay.
Hi, Phil.
Good to see you, man.
Hey. Let's see if we got any lights.
Not a party without Phil.
Wow. Phil, what's the background?
Here, check it out. Let me get out of the way. Believe it or not, that is a closed off alley in downtown Chicago that looks like you're walking into a small nook of a alley in London or something like that. And there's a coffee shop right there. You can see coffee.
Nice.
So
I think I can actually picture where that is on Randolph, maybe. Just
actually
west of
Jackson
State?
across the street, Jackson between Wabash and State, by the DePaul University there. So probably where all the students get their coffee.
All right, well, it's 3:01. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to just make quick introductions one more time. I'm Josh Solomon with the Empty Pockets.
I'm Erica Brett, also with the Empty Pockets.
And then joining us, of course, we have Dan Conroe of City Winery Chicago. And then our friend and legendary folk rocker Al Stewart is with us as
Hello.
well. Hi, Al.
Hey.
Hey, hello.
Hey,
So I'm going to hand it over to Al in a minute, but I'll just set the stage a little bit. Obviously, live music is over temporarily. And so Al and Eric and I came up with a concept kind of based on our touring with Al over the last 4 years. We're Al Stewart's band, and we knew about his music, and we knew about his showmanship, but I don't think we fully understood until a couple hundred shows in Al's uncanny storytelling ability. Al is a master storyteller, and I think it was that brought us to this concept of like, well, we can't perform with Al because he's in California and we're in Chicago. Though we would love to do a full show, we could put on a show at the City Winery, and Al can tell all of the stories. And so as we brainstormed with Al, we thought, Eric and I have been in the van so many times where Al has said, oh, let me tell you about when I first heard Bob Dylan, or let me tell you about the day that I met John Lennon, or let me tell you about the day that I heard Move It on the radio for the first time.
And those stories like changed our life and our understanding of music and have enriched our performances to a large degree.
So the show we're putting on is called Stories and Songs, and it's going to be the story essentially of Al Stewart's life. And in between the stories, the Empty Pockets are going to fill in with 12 songs, 4 of them from inspirations of Al, Bob Dylan, the Beatles, Fairport Convention, and of course, Cliff Richard and the Shadows. And then we're going to feature 8 classic Al Stewart songs, bringing us through the life of his career. Are you nervous, Al? What do you think?
I can't imagine how it'll be, but we'll give it a go.
Al, can you tell us a little bit about Move It and the very beginning of rock and roll? One of my favorite stats, I believe, is 1956. How many guitars were purchased?
Oh, yes, tell that.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, very briefly, as briefly as I can make it. It all starts with Lonnie Donegan. If you're in England, everything starts with a song called the Rock Island Line. Until then, it was all schmaltz and really, really awful stuff. How much is that doggy in the window and all the rest of it? Rock Island Line changes everything. It's a skiffle song. Skiffle doesn't exist in America, so hard to explain, but imagine American folk blues played at 100 miles an hour and you've got skiffle. It just goes really, really quick. Lonnie sang everything about 4 times as fast as he should have done. And it became a phenomenon in England. In 1956, there were maybe 5,000 guitars sold in England, and they went to people who played cowboy songs. In 1957, when Lonnie Donegan had 4 consecutive #1 hits, guitar sales rose to 250,000, and the people who bought them, Jimmy Page, John Lennon, people like that, went on to form the British Invasion. So even though they were 13 or 14 at the time that Lonnie became a huge star in England, these are the people who learned how to play the guitar and then became all the bands that you've ever heard of. So without Lonnie Donegan, none of that exists. Without Lonnie Donegan, John Lennon doesn't get to meet Paul McCartney in 1956 because Lennon had a skiffle group, and he was an absolute fan of Lonnie Donegan, as was everybody else in England. Now, for some unknown reason, this has got lost and America doesn't know about it, but I'm here to tell you that that is the source of the Nile. There are 2 sources of the Nile. The other one is Move It. What happened was that by 1958, all these people who'd grown up in skiffle groups were congregating at the Two Eyes Coffee Bar and forming rock and roll bands, and very early English rock and roll. But it was absolutely awful. It was terrible. I mean, nobody could play, nobody could sing, and American records sounded great. English records were played by usually a teenage singer with 40-year-old jazz musicians playing session in the background, and they hated what they were playing, and the records sounded god-awful. And then a guy called Ian Samwell is on a bus, and he's on the top roof of an open bus headed to make Cliff Richard's first single. And the single is also god-awful. I think it was called Schoolboy Crush. And Sammy Samwell decides to write a song for the B-side because they don't have one. He does this in 10 minutes on the way to the studio. They spend, I don't know, 2.5 hours recording Schoolboy Crush, and it's just, you didn't want to even think about it. Right at the end of the session, they record Move It. They then send it to the only TV producer who mattered in England, who was a guy called Jack Good. And Jack Good, when he is eventually interviewed, says, I played Schoolboy Crush, it was dreadful, I wasn't thinking anything about it. He said, I will never know, as long as I live, what caused me to turn the record over. But he said, I did. And within 15 seconds, I was dancing around the room like a maniac, saying, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. He then calls up Marty Wilde, who's the biggest pop star in England at the time, and says, you have to come round here. Marty Wilde goes round. Jack Good plays him Move It. Marty Wilde listens to it, and he says, yes. He says, it's fantastic. It's just a shame that no one in England can make a record like that.
And that's just the first piece of the show we're putting on. I would call it like a master's degree level history in rock and roll, combined with the concert and Al Stewart's humor. So at this point, Dan, let's hand it over to you if you have anything to say, and then we'll open it to questions.
I'll just give a little background on the actual event. We've been working with the Empty Pockets, our favorite Chicago band, since City Winery opened almost. So probably 2012 or 2013 was their first show. They're just some of our favorite people and musicians in Chicago. We've had Al Stewart, I think, independent of the Empty Pockets at City Winery Chicago. And then when they started collaborating, it was just the perfect collaboration. And we're so thrilled that we've had them on our stage together. And we're so thrilled that this is actually going to be our first City Winery Chicago produced event of this sort. Also of note is that this is going to be, with the Empty Pockets performing on our venue stage, this is going to be our first performance on that stage since March, since the beginning of March. So we're really excited to bring live music back. We're not bringing the audience back in the same way just yet, but this is a great way to kind of, make a hybrid of a virtual event with a true live performance. So we're really excited about that, and just couldn't have better artists than Al and the Empty Pockets.
So I have a couple more things to say, but does anybody have questions that we could open up? Be happy.
My first, it's Lauren. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Lauren.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, Lauren.
I'm with
Hi,
American Blues Scene. I'm trying to get my camera to work. I've never actually used Zoom on my computer. I apologize. But as long as you can hear me, that's good. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any questions at the moment. I'll get back to you though.
Excellent. Go ahead.
I have questions anytime.
We'll go to Lisa, then Phil.
Okay. So Al, She comes out of the sun in a silk dress, running like watercolor in the rain. That's, of course, a beautiful line from You're the Cat on Past, Present, and Future album. I wanted to know about using imagery in lyric writing. Do you feel this comes to you instinctively, or does it require a great deal of rewrites to come up with lines like that?
Oh, no. It's usually instinctive. People can either rhyme things or they can't. And the singer-songwriter thing came really from Bob Dylan, obviously. And then all of a sudden in the 60s, anybody who could rhyme things had a shot at making a career out of it. In the 50s, you had to be able to play and sing. I mean, once you've seen Elvis Presley, you know that you can't do that. You know, I mean, Paul Simon said, I saw Elvis, and I thought I'm never going to be able to do that. But he discovered that he could rhyme things, and for a short period there, that was a big deal. Now, I was rhyming things since I don't know, since I was 3 or something. I mean, it comes very naturally. And so I thought, I'll have a go at this. I mean, it seemed like there were maybe 4 or 5 different major things that would make it in the music business. You had to have the right hairstyle. You had to look great. You had to be able to sing. You had to be able to play. And then in the 60s, all of a sudden, if you couldn't do any of those things, but you could rhyme things, Bob Dylan was your beacon, and you just followed it. So that's what I did.
Thank you.
So my question is, what was your first guitar and the story of acquiring it? And did you ever build your own guitar, as legendary British guitarists often do?
Brian May built his own guitar famously. Yeah. No, I can't build anything. I have absolutely no talents apart from 2. I can rhyme things and I can read a wine list, and these are the only things you need for touring. The first guitar cost 8 guineas, and it was a Spanish guitar. It had a terrible action. It hurt my fingers, and I spent a year trying to play it, and then got rid of it and got something else. I have no idea who made it. It was very cheap.
That seems like the origin story for a lot of British early pop icons and players.
Yeah, well, it all came from Lonnie, like I said, and we all did the same thing. We all got an acoustic guitar and played skiffle all day, and then eventually rock and roll arrived, and then I traded for an electric guitar. I know what that was. That was a Hofner Colorama, and it was red. A Hofner Colorama.
And I think that stat that was mentioned earlier is just so unbelievable. It's one of the reasons we're doing this show. In 1957,
5,000 to 250,000 in 1 year, and that's all Lonnie Donegan's doing.
And there's not that even many people in the UK in 1957. 250,000 is a huge percentage of the population. It's just like, Al, did it feel like every kid had a guitar that summer?
Yes. Once I left school and joined a band, there were 80 rock and roll bands in my own little town alone. I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, bands in every single town all over the UK. I mean, everybody was in a band. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. You don't get the Kinks and the Animals and the Stones and the Beatles and the Who and the Zombies and all the rest of it out of thin air. You got them all because all of these kids, when they were 13, started buying guitars.
Al, am I understanding correctly? Like at some point, you get an electric guitar during that time, and you want to be Chuck Berry, Elvis. At what point is it Dylan that makes you decide I'm going to be really focusing on writing? What changes?
Well, my inabilities, really. I mean, I wanted to be Hank Marvin because everybody, after wanting to be Lonnie Donegan, everyone in England wanted to be Hank Marvin. He was.
And Al, I think we got to talk about Hank Marvin. I didn't know who Hank Marvin was.
No, Americans don't know that one either. It's mind-boggling. The 2 most important people in the British invasion are Lonnie Donegan and Hank Marvin, and neither of them are known in America. I don't know what to tell you. Hank Marvin was in a band called The Shadows, and they had 30 or 40 top 10 hits in England. It's unheard of, including a whole bunch of number ones. And those records sound fantastic even today. So Hank was the guy everybody copied. If you talk to Brian May, because we just mentioned him earlier, and you ask who his influence was, without even a hesitation, he would say Hank Marvin, as would everybody else.
And it's worth it that Hank had those Buddy Holly glasses.
He had the Buddy Holly glasses.
Buddy Holly should call them the Hank Marvin glasses, because Hank Marvin did and that made it okay for John Lennon to wear glasses. I love how those things
It's interesting. When I met John Lennon, he actually was wearing glasses, and this is '63, and I we had no idea that he wore glasses, but he came out of the dressing room and he was wearing glasses, and I oh wow, couldn't see without them.
So we're giving a little flavor now of what the show is actually going to be like. At the City Winery Chicago, we're setting up in an interesting way. We have the band on stage, and then I have a comfy chair, this one actually. And it's cool technology, what we're doing. A TV monitor is going on that chair, and then we will speak to Al directly onto that monitor. So we'll almost appear
On stage together.
as if Al is on stage with us.
Okay.
So I'm excited. Any other questions for?
That's really cool.
I've got one.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, so just in general, having been used to being inspired by so many live entertainers and being an entertainer who thrives on audience reaction, what's it been like for you going digital, just in general?
I don't even know what going digital is. I'm not technical in any way.
It did not take 2 full hours for us to install Zoom on Al's computer.
So in other words, if I'm on a computer, I'm digital?
Yes.
Oh, I can. Well, I haven't been digital for very long, about 15 minutes. So recounting the experience is somewhat difficult in the sense that it's not a very long experience. I don't feel anything in my arms and legs that would suggest anything different medically or philosophically in my brain. I would say going digital leaves one pretty much the same way that one was before.
What do you miss about audience interaction at this point? If the audience were here, what would you say or feel?
I think audience interaction is a wonderful thing because if you do a lot of improv, which the Pockets will tell you, I tend to, like go off at tangents on stage and tell stories or whatever comes into my head. And sometimes they work and sometimes they go straight down the toilet. So you never know what's going to happen. But the audience will let you know. I mean, they will either just sit there with their arms folded thinking, what kind of maniac is he? Or they'll be laughing their heads off. So I think that it's very important for me personally to have an audience because you get the feedback that tells you if you're going in the right direction or not.
We're actually going to do this show with a select virtual audience to try and address that. So similar to the screen now, we'll have a group of people to try to create some of that reaction in our strange virtual world.
For both Al and the performers, for us on stage,
And Josh, as production goes, you can control who can have audio and speak to the whole group versus people catcalling or something like that.
So today, the Empty Pockets are doing a private event for the Skokie Library here in the Chicago area, and that'll be our 41st live stream of the pandemic. So this will be 41 today.
Wow.
I think we have learned something and screamed at each other at 20 of them,
Yeah.
Erica and I.
We're getting better.
But we've learned something at every single live stream. So now the complexity that we're able to achieve internally, we'll have a crew of 4 that day at the City Winery. And yeah, we're going to have multiple camera angles, a moving camera, and Al from his home, as well as a digital audience.
And we're going to be very safe, and we're going to wear masks, and we're going to, do this in a way that we can bring everyone live music, even in this strange environment.
Yeah.
To Phil's point, will there be any audience participation opportunities?
Yes. Al,
I'm in.
Al is extremely improvisational, so we are going to take questions from the comments within, and we're going to take questions from within our small group in Zoom. So I think we're trying to create, one of our passions and we found since doing live streaming is it's important to us that it's live. This show is 100% live. The band is live. Al is live. It's live.
It's not pre-recorded.
There's nothing pre-recorded.
It's very
happening.
exciting.
I love that as an audience member and as a performer.
Well, kudos for getting your head around that because it seems daunting.
Well, to quote the Princess Bride, I think we're mostly alive.
We'd happily take any more questions on or off screen.
Okay, so you had mentioned the 12 songs, the story of Al's life, and then you mentioned there were going to be other songs about something else.
We're going to do 12 total songs. 4 of them are going to be Al's inspirations.
Okay.
Fairport Convention, the Beatles,
Okay.
Bob Dylan, and Cliff Richard and the Shadows. Huge inspirations, obviously each for their own specific reason. In fact, Al can speak more to this, but Fairport Convention is the band on one of Al's first albums called Love Chronicles. They're actually so what we're gonna try to really tell the story and link each song. So when we do a Fairport Convention tune, the next tune we're gonna do is a brilliant Al song called In Brooklyn. And the original band on that is Fairport Convention. So we'll do 4 non-Al songs and 8 Al songs.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, and Fairport Convention live on in a way because their lead guitar player, of course, was Richard Thompson, who continues to have a career. And I read, amazingly, the other day, someone was asked what the 4 most influential records in their life were. And they said, well, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And then they said, there was one by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And then there was another one, I don't know what it was. It was like Dark Side of the Moon by the Pink Floyd. And I thought, these are all very obvious. But the 4th album that this person chose was Fairport Convention. And I thought, okay, he gets it.
Al's introduced Eric and I to Sandy Denny, the singer of Fairport Convention, and she is mind-bogglingly good and talented in those recordings.
So we're really excited and looking forward to tackling the music that we're going to do that's not Al's. And we have such a huge appreciation for Al's music after playing it on the road for 3 or 4 years. So this should be a really fun show for all of us.
And Erica's singing a little bit over half of the material, including the Al material. So we'll hear some beautiful female vocal on classic Al songs.
Oh, nice.
Good.
Very cool.
Can you give a little background on how this collaboration between Al Stewart and the Empty Pockets came together and the history of your collaborations?
It happened because we did a show with Gary Wright, the Dreamweaver, and the Pockets were playing with Gary, and because they were there and they'd learned Gary's songs, I don't know how it exactly came about, but someone suggested that they learned some of my songs and played with both of us, and so that was the first show we ever did. It was a doubleheader with Gary Wright. And then after that, we just kept doing songs. I kept doing gigs. Gary, I think, gave up on the idea, but I thought, oh, this is a good thing. We should pursue this.
Al took us to the UK for the whole month of October last year, and we did 21 shows. I think we sold Al sold like 12 or 13,000 tickets over there.
Wow.
It was an amazing tour, and
We played some incredible venues and had some amazing experiences.
now it feels like we got in it just in time.
Just in time.
Yeah, we did.
Now, were any of these dates in the UK old stomping ground for you, Al?
Oh yeah, I mean, you play all the same venues pretty much. There's a circuit, that everybody plays, and so I played quite a lot of them before, but not all of them. Some of them were new. Yeah.
And familiar faces from the way back at all?
Oh yeah, people come out of the woodwork. People I hadn't seen for forever and ever and ever would appear. Ancient folk singers looking. I remember them when they were 20, and all of a sudden they're 75, and I think, who is this?
Name tags.
Yeah.
Al, many of your beautiful songs are involved with creating a sense of place. And I'm wondering, for you to write about a place, does that require spending time there, reading about it? What are the factors that make that song successful for you?
Well, they do say, write about what you know about. I've actually studiously avoided that for most of my life. I mean, one of the songs I wrote, for example, was about World War II on the Russian front. Now, obviously, I wasn't there, but I had read some of the books by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the Russian dissident. His first book was called One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, and I think he wrote it on toilet paper and smuggled it out of the prison camp where he was. and it was published in the West. It was a very moving book. His next book was actually The First Circle, and that was one of the greatest books ever. But Ivan Denisovich was an interesting book, and I modeled the song Roads to Moscow on that. Now, obviously, I don't know Solzhenitsyn. Oddly enough, he has the same three initials that I do, AIS. But I hadn't met him, and I didn't know much about him until, all of a sudden the Russians kicked him out and he ended up in, I think, Vermont. But the book, was an inspiration for the song. So that's one example. I wrote a song about the Trojan War and I wasn't there either. So I tend to write historical songs. And the odd thing is I feel as if I was there. Now, I wasn't in this lifetime, and I'm not a great believer in was I there in another lifetime? I haven't a clue. But some parts of history you feel very close to, as if you were there. You can reach out and touch it. Other bits of history, I had no attraction to whatsoever. It's very selective. I don't really know why. I'm attracted to some writers and to some parts of history, and others not at all. But you'll wake up one morning and you'll say, "Oh my God, maybe I should write about Edward the Confessor or somebody." And then for the next month, you just live in his life, and you wake up every morning and it's, 11:23 or something. I spent a whole month once in, I think it was 1848. It makes conversations with people quite difficult because they're living in the current time. And for me, there really isn't a current time. I don't believe there's any such thing as the present. And so, I do sometimes arrive and I start talking in archaic language to people, "Oh, would you vouchsafe this to be true?" And it's because I'm, sort of knee deep in the 16th century. And it's like, so I use the language of the 16th century. A lot of people don't like archaic language, but I like it quite a lot. And in fact, I still stick it into songs because if there is a great word, but it's fallen out of favor, well, why not put it back in again? Vouchsafe is actually a better word than, some of the abbreviations you see on the internet.
Can you imagine writing about the great pandemic at some point?
Or which one?
You're right. Which one?
To me, the great pandemic is 1348, but, to other people, it might not be.
That's the most Al Stewart answer ever. Fun.
Well, I mean, the pandemic, it was known as the Black Death, and it killed 1/3 of all the people between Iceland and India. I mean, so your death rate is like, 33 1/3%.
Right.
There were entire villages that got, where everybody died. So this is nothing like that. I mean, I don't think we want to see 1348 again, and there must have been other ones before that. There was plague in London in 1666, right before the Great Fire.
Okay, thanks.
So there are many, many, many pandemics, and there'll be many, many more. But this one, we don't know where it's going or what it's going to do, but it ain't the Black Death.
I'm going to come back.
Oh, hi, Tom.
Okay, Tom, you there? You got a question?
I think he just joined separately. He was talking to something else. But we're still taking questions here.
Yeah, well, you ask a historical question, you'll get an answer.
I love it.
So you like history? History is.
Well, I read a lot of history. I mean, I don't know why. Everyday life is very odd in the sense that it has almost no attraction to me, because what it means is, you go to the post office and then you drop your laundry off, and and then you have to go to the market to find a sandwich for lunch or whatever, and it's all this trivia. And it very, I mean, every now and then something interesting happens, but if you read history, it's interesting all the time. Whereas I can spend weeks at a time doing menial tasks, and none of them have any great resonance with me.
One thing really interesting, because of how Al's music works about the show, which is in many ways about history, is we'll talk a lot about the 50s. But as we go forward in time, in many ways, we'll also go back in time because of Al's songs. So we'll get through the 50s and the 60s, but at the same time, we'll play in Brooklyn, which is, of course, based in the 60s. But if we play
On the Border, we go back in time. If we play Roads to Moscow, we go into the 40s. If we, so it's an interesting way we're going to do this. We go both directions in history because it's Al Stewart.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are, how can I put this? I think there are hinges in history. A door will open and everything will change. I can give you numerous examples. One is 1914. The world was very much, for about 100 years leading up to 1914, there was a sense of certainty. If you read Barbara Tuchman's books, I mean, you'll get that all the way through them. The people knew their place in the world. They knew, they had some concept of, how the world worked and how everything was. And, there were, especially with a social order like England's before 1914, things were very set. They were kind of set in stone. All of a sudden, everything that everyone in the entire country believed went out the window, and the world was a different place. So 1914 to 1918 is one of the hinges of history. And there are others too. They happen all over the world. They don't happen very often, but one of the things that is very important is to recognize them when you see them, because when the door opens, you better be on the right side of it when it closes.
So I'm just going to reset us a little bit here. It's Sunday, July 25th at 4 p.m. Central. We're going to do the first ever City Winery Chicago virtual show. I think it's the first ever. And we're going to do also the first ever Al Stewart involved virtual show. It's called Stories and Songs. And we're going to do 4 songs from Al's inspiration and 8 songs from Al's life. And in a conversation between Eric and I and the band and Al and also the audience, we're going to tell and have Al tell the story of his life and career. I'm pretty excited about it. I think I'd like to, Al, my goal is to suss out some details that I've never heard before.
Yes.
Okay.
You're always saying, I want to make the band laugh because they've heard this joke too many times. So.
Yeah. Well, if I can make you guys laugh on stage, then I know I can make the audience laugh.
Are there any final questions we might have from anybody on video or off?
I have a question. Al, what advice would you give to the beginning songwriter about the challenges or joys?
I think it's a difficult world now for the music business, because it's in the old days it was very, very, there was a path, and the path was, you went and you beat your brains out in the clubs until you got an audience. Once you got an audience, you tried to get a record deal. Once you got a record deal, you tried to, make an album and sell some records, and then hopefully, eventually people would start buying them. And that was a clear path. I really don't know how people do it now. I mean, obviously the internet must play a big role, but for someone of my age, I couldn't begin to fathom that. I mean, I don't really know how you do it. I think it's tougher. There are people who break through all the time, but they largely break through in a commercial way. In other words, if you're Beyonce or, like someone like that, or you make dance records, there is a path that way. You can get them played on, various media platforms, and you can have hits. Quite how Leonard Cohen would be a successful artist in 2020, I haven't any idea. I mean, he probably wouldn't, So, so for singer-songwriters, I'd suggest maybe you go into some other line of business. Bob Dylan was asked the other day, would you do this again if you were starting out? And he said no. He said, I'd be a teacher. So I think there's your answer.
Yeah, it's a toxic pay scale,
The what?
It's kind of a toxic pay scale.
We named our band The Empty Pockets.
Yeah.
I have one more quick question for you specifically, Al. So during the performance on Saturday the 25th, what style or varietal of wine would you recommend drinking during the live stream?
Great question.
Great question.
Good question.
One of the greatest things was the first time I played the City Winery in New York. Michael had this thing where he came to me and he said, I want you to, talk about our wines. And so I went on stage, and then I recommended a wine to go with each particular song.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's a song about, it's like a like it's a song about bright summer or something. So maybe you want a crisp rosé with this song, or a Chardonnay or whatever. And we went through. I had wines set up on a table in front of me, and I was actually recommending wines with individual songs. So, what wine was the question? What wine would I recommend for the concert? Well, that just has to be whatever you want, I mean, as long as it's not White Zinfandel, I don't really mind.
And for a little background on that, of all the artists that have played the multiple locations of City Winery, I think it's pretty safe to say that Al Stewart is the foremost wine expert, the most wine interested, and the person who enjoys wine most of all the artists we've had on our stages.
I am a master counselor of French wine. I don't know if you know, I'm a maître conseil en vin de France. I have the certificate on my wall, so so if I don't know about it, who does?
It's amazing.
Very cool.
Now I want to drink.
Yes.
We recommend wine with the show.
Yes.
It's 5
City
p.m.
Winery wine, if you're so inclined.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes, I should have a wine with the show. What shall I have? That's
A work wine Chardonnay, Al. What do you mean? It's
maybe something white anyway and light. You don't want anything heavy and red.
Al taught us about work wine, which is a Chardonnay that costs an amount of money that a venue is willing to buy 3 bottles of it. And that's what we drink before a show usually. Some delicious Chardonnay.
It has to be young.
Young and from California, please. Right, Al?
Well, it's interesting. Without going into a half-hour lecture, there's a problem with white wines now, mostly from France, but certainly, it's happening with premature oxidization, it's called, and it means that the wines deepen in color and become sherry-like. And so what you don't want to do, and especially if they've been stored, if it's been sitting in a wine store for 5 years under a lamp, it's dead. And it's probably orange and you don't want it. So the only reason I ask for younger California wines is because I want them to be alive when I drink them. And not everyone knows how to treat them. Yeah, well, he's nodding his head, he knows.
Well, I'm curious, do you ever have gigs where you're talking with your expertise of wine, like in wine country in Northern California, where...
Oh, yeah. I've done talks on wine. I've done actually quite a lot. In fact, the Pockets saw me do one. It was on a cruise ship.
It was very memorable.
Actually, I did okay because they gave me a blind wine, and they told me it was a Cabernet Sauvignon, and I tasted it, and I was supposed to identify it. They'll tell you this is true. I tasted it, and I said, yes, it's got Cabernet Sauvignon in it, but this is a blend. I suspect that there's some Merlot in it too. And they looked at the back label, and sure enough, it was a blend of Cab and Merlot. And I thought, okay, I can do this.
And so cool about that moment was Alan Parsons is sitting about 5 feet away, giving witty repartee back and forth with Al the whole time.
Yeah, Alan Parsons played Ed McMahon to Al that day, and it was pretty
really fun.
Well, Alan's very much into wine. Actually, one of the reasons that we worked together in the first place was we had dinner together in 1974, and I still remember what we were drinking. It happened to be a 1966 Chateau Parma. And I said, oh, you're really into wine? And he said, yes. And then I said, would you like to produce one of my records? He said, oh, all right. And then we went back to about wine. So the whole conversation of whether or not we were going to make a record together took 5 seconds, but it was inspired by a 66 Parma, which I like.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Dan, anything else from you, my friend?
Just thank you, and we're really excited about the live stream on the 25th.
Yeah, this is very, very innovative. Thank you for doing this.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity, guys.
Yeah.
Al, you look and sound great. I'm very excited.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it looks like it's well. Of course, it worked in the run through, but whether it'll work on the the actual.
We got you, buddy. We got you.
Yeah.
Take care of you.
It should work.
So far.
All right, last call for questions before we end our little virtual presser.
Okay. Oh, Okay.
Josh, as I was going to say, I'm going to reach out to you before the date to talk about photos and stuff.
Great.
Okay, so what I'm going to need from the pockets is, because I have no idea what I'm looking at. I need to get out of whatever I'm looking at.
I'm going to do it from my end.
You don't have to worry.
You don't even have to
He'll
worry.
give you the boot.
Just call me if you need anything, but I'm going to end this meeting in a moment, and it's all going to be glorious. It'll be gone
You'll
from your
have
computer.
you'll have your office back.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. It's
Thanks,
yeah,
Al.
very nice to talk to you.
Sam.
Hope it
Cheers.
was some use.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.